So there was a debate that happened that would not have been a big deal much at all on the internet, except for the reaction that it's had afterward. Billy Carson, if you're familiar with him, he's kind of like a viral TikToker, podcaster guy who goes and speaks about the Bible a lot and makes a lot of claims about the Bible and has gone viral for it. And he's made a fortune on his forbidden knowledge brand company, spreading that kind of information. He had a debate with a biblical scholar named Wes Huff, and it went so badly that he ended up suing the people involved with it, and it's made his name. It has really tanked his credibility. But I want to make this video kind of going into some of the things that they mentioned during the debate and just showing you for yourself so you can see for yourself what they talked about and what it is that he was claiming and that kind of thing. So I want to talk about basically two things that happened in this debate, or two things that were mentioned in the debate. And I just want to look at the claims themselves. Some of the things that he claimed in the debate, he's claimed in podcasts prior to the whole situation. So I just want to just quickly take a look at one YouTube short that is from one of his podcast appearances. This is one of the claims that he's made about Christianity.
Meaning of certain
I'll give you one big translation that's off. Is they say, well, Jesus was crucified.
Whoa.
Well, that doesn't exist in the Sinai Bible.
What happened?
It doesn't exist in the book of Barnabas. He didn't.
It's a fire name, Barnabas.
I know. He didn't. But they left that out of the Bible on purpose, by accident.
So how did?
So he's claiming that basically the crucifixion didn't exist in what he calls the Sinai Bible. And he clarified even after the debate that he's referring to Codex Sinaiticus. So before we look at the actual verses that are in Codex Sinaiticus, just some background. Codex Sinaiticus is probably the most famous, well-known biblical manuscript or ancient Bible on the planet, second only to Codex Vaticanus. Codex Vaticanus and Codex Sinaiticus are two of the most influential manuscripts on the planet for the New Testament. As a matter of fact, if you have like an ESV or an NIV or one of the modern translations of the Bible, it is based heavily on Codex Vaticanus and Codex Sinaiticus. They're both what they call Alexandrian manuscripts, whatever. But they're extremely influential, and they read virtually identical to any Greek New Testament that you get your hands on. It reads just like that. If you get a USB, if you get a UBS Greek New Testament, if you get a Nestle-Aland 28th edition, whatever it is, if you get a Greek New Testament, it's going to read nearly identical to Codex Sinaiticus and Codex Vaticanus. So when he says the Sinai Bible doesn't have the crucifixion in it, he's wrong, right? The crucifixion is in Matthew 27:26, it's in Matthew 27:35, Mark 15:25, Luke 23:33, it's in John 19:17 through 18, it's in 1 Corinthians 2:2, it's in 2 Corinthians 13:14. In Codex Sinaiticus, it is absolutely true that Jesus is crucified, and when you read Codex Sinaiticus, it reads like any other Greek New Testament. There are some significant variants if you go deep into the weeds, like on, the long ending of Mark, and some minor variation and stuff like that. But it's basically just a Greek New Testament. Okay. But I got some verses I want to go through. The thing about Billy Carson is that he made his name by making big claims that most regular people can't go in and verify. Most people are not even aware of what the Sinai Bible is, or the Gospel of Barnabas, the book of Barnabas that he referenced. Most people don't know what that is. And so he makes his name by making claims about the Bible that people can't check. And so he undermines the whole the whole thing of Christianity, and nobody can go check behind him and tell him that he's wrong. And that's how he made all his money. That's why he has a movie theater in his house. He has an elevator in his house. Like that, he's made a lot of money by making claims like this. And it's just sensationalism that your average person can't go in and check behind. So what I want to do is just go through some verses. I may not go through all of them, but right here on Matthew 27:26, and there's a link in the description that's going to have codexsinaiticus.org. You go there, you click on the tab that says see the manuscript, and you just put in whatever passage you want to see, and you'll see it in Greek. You'll have it transcribed on the right, and you'll have a translation on the same page. What we're looking at here's the word hina stavrothi. So that he will be crucified. He was delivered to be crucified. That's what this line here says right here in the middle of the screen. So that's Matthew 27:26. Verse 35. So we have here Matthew 27:35. In English it says, and they crucified him. Okay. In Greek, what would that be? Stavrosades de afton. And here's the they crucified him. They crucified him. And they crucified. So in Greek, matches up with what the English would say, and so we would look for Matthew 27:35 in the manuscript. So Matthew chapter 27 verse 35, it says here, Stavrothades de afton, which means they crucified him. So in Sinaiticus 27:35, and they crucified him. Let's go to Mark chapter 15, verse 25. Okay, so you have here in the middle of the screen, Estavrosan afton, means they crucified him. And they crucified him. You have it in Luke 23:33. You have it John chapter 19, verses 17 through 18. You got it in 1 Corinthians 2:2, where he says, when I came to you, I was determined to know nothing but Jesus Christ and him crucified. All of these things are in Codex Sinaiticus because it's just basically a Greek New Testament. It's an old ancient copy of the Greek New Testament from the 300s AD. And it reads pretty much like it's going to be closer to your modern Bibles than something like the King James. It's missing two significant passages, such as the story of the woman caught in adultery and what they call the long ending of Mark. But other than that, it's just a regular Alexandrian ancient New Testament manuscript. Now, so the other thing that gets brought up is the Gospel of Barnabas, or the book of Barnabas. And that reminded me, now I don't know that he makes this claim, but I have seen there's a couple things that go viral quite often on the internet. And I'm going to actually recommend a blog. So if you actually want to learn about the study of biblical manuscripts, is by a guy named James Snap Jr. And he actually has excellent information. He has probably all of the relevant evidence one way or the other on the long ending of Mark. So if that topic interested you, I recommend James Snap Jr.'s material on that. But anyway, so you have this manuscript here. So let me zoom in a little bit on this. You may be familiar with this picture. It gets brought up a lot. There's a picture of a very old looking Bible. Okay. And depending on what link it is or what the person, usually on some kind of viral thing, sometimes it's on Facebook, sometimes it's on TikTok, whatever it is, and people will make these claims about it. A lot of times it's Muslims making the claims. if you ever see this Bible and something about it says, oh, there's a 1,500-year-old manuscript or a 2,000-year-old Bible or something like that, and it claims that Jesus wasn't crucified or something, like, whenever you see that, you should know this is a fake story that has been, it keeps resurfacing for some reason because it gets views. The main thing for sensationalist stuff on YouTube or Facebook is because it gets views, because it's a big claim. I'm going to zoom even further in because I want to show you something about this manuscript. That's a good picture here. So this is one of the pages out of the manuscript. One reason you know that it's not 1,500 years old is because if you look very carefully, you see a lot of dots. And the writing looks like Arabic. Apparently it's a Syriac copy of the New Testament. But you see all the dots. Okay, these are called diacritical marks. And in the Arabic alphabet and things like that, the Syriac alphabet, these dots were not in ancient inscriptions and writings with that language. These dots were invented much, much later, like in the 7th century, 6th century, things like that, or 8th century, when basically they wanted to be able to distinguish between certain letters and put the vowels. Because if you would read the writing, the alphabet didn't have vowel markings to tell you exactly how to pronounce certain letters, and so it would be very difficult to read it. Like the original Quran for the Muslims would not have been written with the vowel markings. But this is something that you'll see only in later manuscripts, that you'll see that kind of thing. Also in ancient writings, you normally didn't have colored ink like that, right? One interesting thing about this is that what this is actually a picture of, and let me zoom back out just a little bit. What this is actually a picture of is a colophon that actually tells you when this was written. So if you go, James Snap actually transcribes it and has the translation of it. It says, "In the name of our Lord, this book is written on the hands of the monks of the high monastery in Nineveh in the 1500th year of our Lord." Instead of supporting the idea that this manuscript is 1500 years old, it contains a colophon which dates its production to the year 1500. So this is not an ancient manuscript, but people claim that it is. But also, apparently if you look above the colophon, it contains text from the end of the Gospel of Matthew. So instead of it being the Gospel of Barnabas, as people claim in this news post, whatever, it's not a copy of the Gospel of Barnabas. It's a copy of the Gospel of Matthew. But what about the Gospel of Barnabas? The Gospel of Barnabas was something that everyone familiar with it knows as a forgery. It originated in Spain. A lot of people know that the country of Spain, because actually I can pull up a map here and show something here. So if you take a look at the map, you see how very, very close Spain is to North Africa. So North Africa, you've got Algeria and Morocco, and they kind of combine, and there's a very tight land gap here that basically you can cross. And so Muslims back many centuries ago went into Spain. I think actually multiple times. They invaded and conquered territory and things like that. So there's a lot of Arabic and Muslim Islamic influence in Spain over the centuries. During that period, there was the Gospel of Barnabas was written, and it actually corresponds to the Islamic idea that Jesus wasn't crucified. In fact, it was Judas who was replaced with Judas was replaced with Jesus, and this is basically a pseudepigraphal forgery that was made back in the day by a Muslim somewhere, and no one, even including Muslim scholars, takes it seriously as a legitimate gospel that goes back to Barnabas himself. It's just a pseudepigraphal thing that is probably meant to substantiate the original, the standard Muslim idea that Jesus was replaced by Judas. But there's no reference to it. There's no ancient reference to it. There's no old ancient copies of it. It's just an old book. Like, it was a relatively new book, really, that was of Muslim origin. I think it exists in Spanish and Italian. There may be, I can't remember if there's any other languages of it, but yeah, it's just a known forgery. Now, the Epistle of Barnabas is actually something totally different, and that actually is in Codex Sinaiticus. It's one of the books that are it's at the end of Codex Sinaiticus, after the book of Revelation. So if you go to codexsinaiticus.org, you'll see the Epistle of Barnabas. But this is a totally different, it's non-canonical. It's not part of the New Testament. It's after the New Testament. In this book, it's at the end. That one and Shepherd of Hermas. Those are two very influential early Christian books that are not canonical, but they would go along with the Bible. I think whenever you find them, you normally find them at the very end of the New Testament. But yeah, so we've covered a lot. So whenever you study the New Testament, Codex Sinaiticus is one of the most basic things that you would study, because it's extremely well known. And even after the debate, he didn't even really know how to pronounce it. He said Codex Sinaiticus or something like that. So he didn't really demonstrate that he's even familiar with Codex Sinaiticus. He called it the Sinai Bible, and then he called it the Book of Barnabas. But if you're familiar with the fact that there's an Epistle of Barnabas and a Gospel of Barnabas, and there's multiple works that are attributed to Barnabas, that you wouldn't call it Book of Barnabas. You would specify which one you're talking about. So it's stuff like that kind of exposes people who make sensationalist videos and make a big claim about something to go viral. And he made a fortune doing it, and it's kind of unfortunate because people can't go in and prove it. So the moral of the story is, you don't just trust what you hear on the internet. Anyway, if you like this type of content, just feel free to subscribe, and I may seek out and see other sensationalist style YouTube videos and things like that, and just fact check them to see, what is real and what is not. Because it's easy to make big claims and go viral, but then when you can't actually go and verify yourself, how are you supposed to know that this person is telling you the truth? So, but beyond that, I think that will be all for this video. There's more I could talk about from that debate and things like that, but feel free to subscribe, like the video if you liked it and enjoyed the content, and I will see you guys in the next video.